I think it's always worth spending those little extra money on hiring a professional photographer, or, as I said, collaborating with someone in, mutual benefits. But getting those high quality photos is definitely good and gives you enough room to work with. Basically, I consider April Fools as the best marketing opportunities that there is. It's like a one day in a year when you are technically allowed to fool your audience, and nobody should really be upset about it.
Yeah, all these highly engaging posts, obviously you want to grow the audience, but I mean, a big part of any business really is retaining your loyal customers, and if you can get them to keep on returning, then you've got a solid base for your business. And so, the strategy isn't all for growing the audience, it's also, for engaging with the guests that have already stayed with us and, encouraging them to come again, isn't it? Hello, and welcome to the Glampitech podcast. Today I'm joined by Patrick Volgaski, who's a social media coordinator for Glampitech and North Coast 500 Pods. We're going to focus more on his work with NC 500 Pods today, as we've had some feedback from listeners who want to hear more about social media marketing for glamping sites in a little more detail. In the episode, we discuss the differences between Facebook and Instagram, the type of content that generates the most engagement, the importance of engaging with your core customer base, and April Fool's pranks. As ever, I hope you enjoy and find value in today's episode. Hi Patrick, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. So you're basically the social media guy for Glampitech and North Coast 500 Pods. North Coast 500 Pods, or NC 500 Pods as we'll call it, for anyone who doesn't know, is the glamping site that Callum and Ali set up a few years back, which basically, gave them all their glamping, started them off on their glamping knowledge, learned how to, apply for planning permission for glamping sites. They learned what it takes to run a successful glamping site. And obviously Callum and Ali are very hands-off in the running of that. So at some point they, hired you to run the social medias for them. And I was actually speaking to Ed, our sales guy, the other day, and he said that, a listener to this podcast was enjoying the episode with Callum where we talked about marketing before launching a glamping site, but they were just after a bit more specific info on the social media marketing side. So we're going to dig into that a bit today, and go into a few of the specifics. But just to start off, how did you end up working for Glampitech, and with our main focus today for NC 500 Pods? How did that come about?
So I actually started looking for work before I graduated. I had like a videography and editing skills that I wanted to apply in digital marketing, because I've always been interested in social media, advertising and stuff like that. But I really didn't have much experience in digital marketing. So I thought that as soon as I graduate, I'll just look in the digital marketing field to improve on that skill. But yeah, I basically grew up with social media, so there was really not much for me to learn. It was more a case of getting more experience, and I've managed social media pages before for free. So when the opportunity of working at Glampitech came along, I knew that this was a great chance for me to start. So I was invited to the interview, but I didn't really know much about glamping before. So I've been researching the industry for a good couple of weeks before I got my head around it. And I was really positively surprised with how popular it is and how it's still growing. I realized there is so much potential for marketing a glamping site. The rise of glamping timed perfectly with the staycation trend, really skyrocket in popularity and interest among young people, including myself. And it is actually now setting its own trends with its, sustainability, luxury, and the whole connection with nature. So I was really excited to execute my ideas, and I threw some of my ideas at the interview, and they really liked the fact that I also had the videography skills. So we were basically on the same page, that it was good to apply those skills in a different field and obviously keep improving on the new ones. So yeah, and then he just offered me a job. So I was happy to go and start with doing the marketing side of it. And here we are.
Mm. Yeah, well, it's a good point about how, you know, you grew up really with social media like I did, and it is a lot easier for people like us to know what it takes to run, you know, have a decent social media feed, and that's, I think, why Callum was so successful with his early marketing efforts, because, you know, he just understood what people are after on Instagram and Facebook and things like that. I think, you know, the people that are our clients are generally, you know, an older crowd. Generally, you know, they've got a bit of capital to invest, and that might not be their forte as such. Whereas, you know, we're our company is full of young people. Really, we sort of understand what it takes to run social media pages. You mentioned there that you ran a few pages for free. What sort of pages were they, and did you learn much from that?
Yeah, so I used to work in Marks and Spencer, so they offered me to run their local store social media page, and I've also had my own social media page with about 10,000 likes, but it was really nothing, like business driven or stuff like that, or like I wasn't selling anything. It was more like just learning how to engage with people. Basically exploring the tools that social media has and the potential to grow and stuff like that. So I was pretty confident to take on NC500 pods, pretty much, and obviously Glampitech and our own clients. So yeah.
Yeah, and obviously Callum had done well with the social media pages for NC500 pods. Did he, when he brought you on board, did he sort of lay out a blueprint for you, or did you have a lot of creative control, and have you changed much, or have you carried on with the general sort of themes that he was doing?
So that's actually something that I really like, that I was given this freedom of creativity. We didn't really have a set plan. We just like came together and agreed on objectives and KPIs, and we both knew what we want from social media, and I was just trying to execute my ideas. Some of them work really well, some of them didn't, but obviously that's the part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, we did get a lot of new followers. We reached out to a lot of new people, especially Glampitech. The page, the business really made its name in the industry, partly through the social media stuff. So that's good. And yeah, so basically, I was just trying to every day I was just like coming up to Callum with my ideas, and then eventually he was like, you know what, just like I'll let you do it. I can see that you're doing good, so you don't have to like come every time and ask me if that's good or not. I'll just trust you in this. So I was like, okay. So I had this sense of responsibility, which actually made me more motivated
Yeah.
to execute my ideas very well. And I was happy with the results. And here we are today. That's the literally everyday day-to-day routine now.
Yeah, and what does a typical week of North Coast 500 pods content look like?
So we usually try to plan content a couple weeks ahead, while leaving few gaps here and there, just to give us enough room to respond to any current social media trends or events that are happening. But because of the large following that we have, and the fact that obviously thanks to Callum as well, and the fact that we have two glamping sites in Akmelvik and Brora, the ideas for content are pretty much endless. So I've got, as I said, like a calendar that I just usually try to schedule all my content and see what works well or what doesn't work. We often do collaborations with photographers and other NC500 focus pages to share photos of key NC500 locations, always trying to, showcase the beauty of local environment and encourage people to visit our glamping sites. We also benefit from our unique selling points. In this case, it's Amazon Alexa and our pods, custom lighting, voice control, smart home. So that is really attractive for new audience to book a stay with us. As I said before, responding to current trends or events. So recently, let's say first day of spring, So build a little bit of content on that. Easter, building up to a reopening in a few weeks. So yeah, good thing is that because of the fact that we always try to collaborate with other content creators, we have a library containing hundreds and hundreds of high quality photos of both of our sites and its surrounding areas. So there's so much room to get creative with our content. So one thing I'll definitely say is having as many as possible high quality photos is definitely good for managing a social media page, because obviously it will, like, people will always be more encouraged to click and, you know, check out your glamping site when it's got like very beautiful images of your glamping site and the area around it.
Yeah. And how often do you post, a day or a week?
So now it's every day, sometimes twice a day. Obviously we want to reach as many people as possible, so we just try to be as consistent as possible. So yeah.
Okay, and do you mix up the strategy depending on the platform? Because obviously, you know, we've got Facebook and Instagram pages. Does the content change for that, or does it, you know, does one lead the other?
So we usually do cross posting. So we share the same content on Instagram and Facebook, but there's obviously exceptions, like because on Instagram you can't really share links or articles. So in terms of articles, we usually do graphics, just with like quoting whatever the article is saying. And obviously on Facebook you've got reactions. So let's say we do because we try to encourage with our audience through reactions as well. So recently we've done a post when we ask our audience to vote between our two glamping sites, like whatever was better. So let's say you wanted to vote for Akmelvik, you give a like. If you want to vote for Brora, you give a heart reaction. And obviously you can't do it on Instagram, so we had to work our way around this. So we just done a poll on Instagram story. And obviously one thing that is very beneficial for Instagram as opposed to Facebook is hashtags, which basically works like SEO for Instagram, because Facebook is not really hashtags driven that much. So hashtag is definitely a good way to reach new people on Instagram.
And so, you know, having a good sounds like having a good knowledge of the specifics of each platform is quite important if you really want to utilize each platform to the fullest.
Yeah, definitely. As I said, we do, although we do cross posting across all platforms, you can't really just copy and paste it, because obviously, as I said, you can't share links. Like Instagram is very limited in terms of like links, articles, and you know, stuff like that. Whereas Facebook is basically you can do all sort of content. So yeah, you just need to like carefully plan out how can you execute this idea on this platform and another platform.
Yeah, and we were speaking to Calvin the other week, and he said, you know, he initially started out focusing on Instagram because that's just, you know, as he said, the words, he's part of like the Instagram generation. But Facebook is actually better for the business really, because it seems to get more engagement, and also, you know, it's easier to get direct bookings because you can just say you can put a link in Facebook post, whereas Instagram you can't. You have to go through a few funny steps. So do you have like when you're thinking of content, do you have it with Facebook in mind more than Instagram, or is it sort of a 50-50 split?
I would say it's more like a 50-50 split. But as you said, yeah, Facebook is definitely like the main thing to get on. So if I was to choose between Facebook and Instagram, I would definitely choose Facebook. It's got better reach, it's got much more room to work with, as I said, different types of content. So it can be photos, it can be GIFs, videos, normal posts. You can also join Facebook groups, which is actually very beneficial if you want to, you know, engage with new audience, share your glamping side and whatever you've got to offer. Instagram is still good, and as Callum mentioned in one of the episodes, that it's more like showcasing your glamping sign, showing showcasing the photos and exposing yourself to wider audience. But mainly Facebook would be your main point to get those bookings.
Yeah, you mentioned Facebook groups there. That's a good point actually, because they're really good for for people who don't know, a Facebook group is a sort of a mini community that you can join, and you get I suppose you get more notifications and stuff for things that are posted in that little community that only that, well, if it's a private group, that only that little community can see. And you've actually set one up for Glam Protect, haven't you? It's called the Glamping Site Owners Discussion, where, you know, we help our prospective and existing clients with content in that. But is there one for NC500 pods, or do you just do it for Glam Protect?
So Glamping Site Owners Discussion was actually set up by Colin, but I remember when I joined, it had only about 200, 300 members, and there wasn't really much activity going on. So basically what I've done, I was just trying to get as much publicity of the group as possible. And we're now at over 2,000 members, with like about 10 to 20 joining every day. But yeah, as you said, it's definitely a very, very good tool to look at in terms of like, you know, getting new ideas of for your glamping site, collaborating with other people, basically discussing the glamping industry, getting some insight, networking with other people. So for as a glamping site owner, I would say the best thing about Facebook groups is to get ideas and look at the competition, see what others are doing, check out their pages, see what works well at their social media pages, and any ideas that you could possibly incorporate into your own glamping site. And yeah, I wouldn't really use it for advertising as much. Maybe for, I mean, there are some groups that are specifically designed for advertising, but in general, I would say it would be more beneficial. It would be more beneficial for people to just use Facebook groups as part of just getting your award out there through, like, not maybe directly promoting, but as I said, just discussing and sharing your ideas, because people would be more likely to you know, get in a conversation with you if they saw the, like, a cool idea that you shared, rather than just trying to sell and get bookings.
Yeah, and if there are any listeners who aren't in our Facebook group for if you want to set up a glamping site, then we'll put a link to it in the description. It's called Glamping Site Owners Discussion. Just before we dig into some specific types of content that you do for NC500 pods, because you know this stuff does genuinely work. So how many followers do we have on Instagram, and how many likes do we have on our Facebook page for NC500?
So at the moment, we've got over 35,000 on Facebook, and I think 33,000 on Instagram.
Okay, so that should give you an idea. You know, some of this stuff can really build up your following. And obviously, the more following you have, you'd like to think the more bookings you get and the more popular your site is. So what kind of content do you think gets the most engagement for a glamping site?
So as I said before, definitely high quality photos. So I think it's always worth spending those little extra money on hiring a professional photographer, or, as I said, collaborating with someone in you know, mutual benefits. But getting those high quality photos is definitely good and gives you enough room to work with. And also it's very attractive for new followers to come and see photos of your glamping site. We always try to engage with our audience by responding to current trends. As I said before, we do memes as well. So we try to, like, get like funny content to our audience as well, because obviously this is often a conversation starter as well. And then we can respond to as many comments as we can, because like the more people are engaging, the better. And it's always important that you engage with your audience as well. So it's not like you just post a picture of your glamping site, say something nice, and you just leave it. I think it's very important that you show that, you know, that there's people behind your business. Not like it's not robots that, you know, do automatic posting of your posts. It's actually real human beings behind the business. We often run like a photo contest as well, just to, like, you know, for example, recently we've asked our audience to share the best photos of their stay with us. And then we decided to run a contest when they would, for example, win a 10% voucher for their next stay. And it was really, really high engaging as well, because obviously everyone wants to win, and whoever stay with us, you always get, nice opportunities to get these nice looking photos. As I mentioned before, which side do you like more, type of thing. So if you got more than one glamping site, or more than one glamping pod or yard, or something like that, you can do like a internal voting, asking your audience like what do you prefer, and generally questions, like just try to ask questions to your audience, because obviously getting answers from them will always drive engagement. We also try to get featured in articles related to North Coast 500 staycations and stuff like that. So whenever we are featured in any article, we always share it to our social medias, and it always drives engagement as well, because people are interested to see what other businesses say about us and other people say about us. So yeah, that's what I would definitely focus on the most.
Yeah, and you mentioned competitions there. Did you run one recently that gave us a massive bump in followers?
Yes. So we did collaborate with another business from Edinburgh, and we ran a giveaway. So basically, we asked people to follow us, tag their friends, and they could be in a chance to win a free night stay with us. And it did blow up. We gained about 10,000 followers in a week. And it's been picked up by some influencers on Instagram with a really big following, and they reached out to us, offering to promote our glamping site in exchange of offering them a free night stay for free, which obviously is always a good thing, because it depends on the following. But if you see that you can really benefit from getting that wide audience from someone else, it would be really wise to consider offering a free night stay in exchange for promoting, because you never know what good might come of it. And we had some influencers before, from which we gained about, I think one of them, because one of them went to our Brora site and shared, she was taking really good photos of like our sauna and glamping pods, and I think from her page itself we got about 10 bookings. So yeah, it's definitely worth considering that.
Yeah, and for those not well versed in social media lingo, an influencer is someone usually on Instagram who has some sort of following. Probably somewhere anywhere between 5,000 to infinite number of followers. And there's a whole industry now of these influencers getting paid or getting things like free night stays in return for some promotion. It's just a form of advertising that's really effective, because it's targeted, because of the people, the people that follow him trust them, and they tend to get quite good return on investments from those advertisements. And then just the last thing on specific content, you actually the other day you posted an April Fool's prank, which got a lot of engagement and inquiries that you had to let some people down, I believe.
Yeah, so basically I consider April Fools as the best marketing opportunities that there is. It's like a one day in a year when you are technically allowed to fool your audience, and nobody should really be like upset about it. But yeah, it drove really good engagement. So basically we joked that we're going to build an underwater pod, and we got a really great engagement from it, and a lot of people messaged us asking to book it. But obviously we had to like break the news that, well, unfortunately not this time, but maybe in the future. But yeah, like the general response was really positive. Like a lot of people were laughing and joking with us. And we ended up actually getting like reaching new audience who saw the aquapod. They were like, oh my god, what is that? And when they realized it's just a joke, then afterwards they went to check on the actual pods that we have. So we actually ended up getting bookings from that campaign as well. But yeah, it was definitely one of the better campaigns that we executed.
Yeah, and all these highly engaging posts, obviously you want to grow the audience, but I mean, a big part of any business really is retaining your loyal customers. And if you can get them to keep on returning, then you've got a solid base for your business. And so, the strategy isn't all for growing the audience. It's also, for engaging with the guests that have already stayed with us and, encouraging them to come again, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. We actually managed to build ourselves a little fan base when we have a small group of people where they actually engage with almost any of our posts. They share with their friends and family, and we've got few people that like return to stay with us for like third or fourth time. So I would say it's pretty important that you treat your customers as your friends and family, pretty much. So if you're really passionate about social media, you can make it like really fun. Like you don't feel like you're working. It's more like you log in every day and you basically want to share with your audience because you really like to do that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay. And then obviously this podcast is aimed at helping as many prospective and existing glamping site owners as possible, but we're also a business and we do offer marketing services. And as you'll be able to see from the numbers that we've got on our social media pages, we like to think that we're pretty good at it. I know you are, Patrick. So what sort of services do we offer for our social media marketing clients?
So basically we can do anything that they want us to do, from setting up from scratch, managing, basically paid ads, advertising. We can also do website setup if they need one, because obviously social media and website, you always want to link to your website from your social media. So we can do all of that for them. Because obviously, as I said before, social media is very time consuming. Not everybody has time to do it. You can see the example of Callum, like he had to get someone to take over social media because he just didn't have enough time to do it. And since then, we're posting every day. We're responding to comments faster. We're responding to messages quicker. We create graphics, which is more looks more professional. We always try to incorporate NC500 logo, some sort of like a watermark on high engaging content. So when it reaches new people, they will see the logo and potentially look for more information. We started posting on Facebook groups, as I said before. We collaborate with others, all those little things that normally you wouldn't have time to do it yourself, because obviously it does take time. So and as I said, the benefits are really great. So it's definitely worth considering social media setup and management services.
Yeah, I'd emphasize the time aspect, but also the quality aspect. It's more important. We said with Callum the other day, it is more important to just get going and try things and stuff. But if you do want that extra bit of quality, we've got the designers who can make it look, slick and professional, but also personable. And just that consistency of quality and quantity of content. I think that's something that we really can offer for our clients. But yeah, so get in touch if you're interested in hearing more about those kind of things. But Patrick, thank you for coming on, and I'll leave you to posting more for NC500 and Glamptech.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Glamptech podcast. I hope you enjoyed and that you found value in today's episode. If you did, feel free to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us move up the podcast rankings. Thank you.